Hi, my name is Jeremiah Wan. My group will present about manual transmission. For the introduction for this topic, history, remember that French inventor Louis René Parhat and Émile Levasseur is creator of the first modern manual transmission. Prior to the demonstration of the three-speed transmission in 1894, many of the earliest automobiles were rear engine using a simple bed drive as a single-speed transmission. Parhat and Levasseur transmission involved a non-synchronous design in which changing gear required the driver to slide the gear along shaft to cause the desired cogs to become mesh. This sliding mesh design remained the foundation for most of today's modern manual transmission. In 1898, Louis Renault innovated on Parhat and Levasseur design, replacing the drive chain with a drive shaft and implementing a differential axle for the rear wheel, thus boosting the manual transmission performance. In the early 20th century, by the start of 1900, many vehicles transitioned to a synchronous transmission. The 1929 Cadillac was the first automobile to use a manual transmission with synchronomesh. However, most vehicles continue to use non-synchronous transmission until mid-century. For example, heavy trucks and racing cars they use a non-synchronous transmission in order to keep up with the required force or to shift gear faster. Still, the Cadillac synchronized manual transmission was a major milestone as it reduced gear grinding and made the shifting process smooth and less labor-intensive overall. Next, definition. A manual transmission is a gearbox that allows the driver to choose from a several gear ratio. Higher gear ratio produce less torque but faster speed, while lower gear ratio supply more torque but slower speed. A synchronous manual transmission gear system is the earlier type of system in the automotive world. A synchronous transmission required manual synchronization, which is dependent on the driver ability to synchronize gear speed at each shift event, which is particularly important on the downshift. Synchronomesh gearbox have teeth that are always in mesh and revolving at all transmission speed, but the gears are not directly attached to the shaft on which they move.
Hi, my name is Konstantin Vincindu, and I'm going to present about why is a manual transmission important of a car and the purpose of manual transmission of a car. Okay, why is a manual transmission important? A manual transmission of a car is important to transfer engine power to the drive shaft and a differential to turn the wheels. Manual transmission playing a vital role in control the torque and speed that send forward to the wheels from the engine. Other than that, its purpose is to provide a level of flexibility to the driver and make engine's power and the torque more usable. The first purpose of manual transmission of a car is to change the vehicle's drive wheel speed and torque in relation to engine speed and torque. Next, provide a means of changing torque to fit engine operating requirement. Provide lower purchase price and less expensive to service. Then, enable power transmission to the engine and the drive wheels. Next purpose is provide means to drive the driving wheels at different speeds when required. And lastly is keep engine in normal operating RPM rotation per minute range.
Okay, thank you to my previous presenter. So my name is Sharan Kumar and my matrix number is B0919103455. Now I'll be explaining about how the manual transmission system works. This is an overview. So the transmission uses a flywheel, pressure plate, and a clutch to engage and disengage the engine from the transmission. So you can see the pathway. The flywheel and the pressure plate are connected to the engine. The clutch is sandwiched between them and is splined to the transmission input shaft. When the term pushing the clutch means to release the pressure plate, which will disengage the clutch from its engine. Next, we are going to look into changing the gear. Using the shift lever, the driver selects first gear and the linkage moves the shift fork to connect the first second locking collar with first gear. Next, as the driver speeds up, by selecting second gear simply involves repeating the process but moving the shift lever to second gear. So what will happen is the shift shaft moves the shift fork to disengage from the first gear and engage to the second gear. Next, we'll go and look into the changing to third gear, which involves using a second shift linkage, shift fork, and locking collar. This one is between third and the fourth gear. So next, we're going to look into the gear system. So this is the basic diagram. So as you can see, next we will go into the transmission. The green shaft, as you can see in the diagram, it comes from the engine through the clutch. The green shaft and the green gear are connected as single unit. When one pushes into the clutch pedal, the engine and the transmission are disconnected so that the engine can run even if the car is standing still. When the clutch pedal is released, the engine and the green shaft are directly connected to one another. Next is the red shaft and the gears are called the lay shaft. The green shaft and the red shaft are directly connected through their mesh gears. So if the green shaft is spinning, the red shaft will also spin. Thus, the lay shaft receives the power directly from engine. The yellow shaft is a splined shaft that connects directly to the drive shaft through the differential to the drive wheels of the car. So if the wheels are spinning, the yellow shaft is spinning. The blue gears ride on bearings, so they spin on the yellow shaft. If the engine is off, but the car is still coasting, the yellow shaft can turn inside the blue gears, while the blue gears and the lay shaft are motionless. So this is the transmission from the first gear to so on. So when shifted into the first gear, the purple collar engages the blue gear to its right. The green shaft from the engine turns the lay shaft, which turns the blue gear to its right. This gear transmits its energy through the collar to drive the yellow drive shaft. Meanwhile, the blue gear on the left is turning, but it's freewheeling on its bearing, so it has no effect on the yellow shaft. This is about the reverse gear. The reverse gear is handled by a small idler gear, the purple one in the middle. At all times, the blue reverse is turning in a direction opposite to all the other blue gears. Therefore, it would be impossible to throw the transmission into reverse while the car is moving forward. So we don't have to worry about hitting the reverse transmission while we are moving. Actually, it won't engage. So that is all from me. Thank you, and I would like to pass it to the next presenter.
Hi everyone, my name is Mugilasan Subramaniam. So I like to present about advantage and disadvantage of manual transmission of a car. First we see advantage. So first of all, manual car is low price. Have you ever noticed manual transmission vehicles cost less, like thousands of dollars less than manual transmissions, have fewer moving parts and therefore cost less. If you are on a tight budget but still looking for a new vehicle, check out a manual transmission vehicle and save some cash. The second is easier to maintain. So since they are less complex than automatics, there is less of a chance for something to go wrong. The clutch is the only item that generally need to repair, but for the most part there isn't need for hundreds of thousands of miles. So the price of maintenance also will reduce. So the third is better gas mileage. If you use a gas, driving a manual transmission vehicle puts you in a charge of your car, unlike an automatic transmission. You are shifting gas and deciding how much power you are spending to your engine. Going to down a hill, shift your car into neutral and let it coast like a bicycle without sending any extra power to your engine. After that, the less your engine is working, the less fuel you are burning. The power is in literally your hand. Okay, let's see disadvantage. My first point is poor availability. This paradigm shift from previous years wasn't unexpected. With the advancement in automatic transmission technology, gas mileage and performance are now comparable. Because of this and the overall convenience factors, people are now purchasing automatics at a much higher rate. Then after that is driving in traffic. Driving in bumper to bumper traffic in large cities can be both a nuisance and a wallet breaker if you own a manual transmission. Those familiar with driving manual transmission in urban areas, for example, often complain about leg cramps and increased workload with driving in the traffic. With a third pedal to actuate during shift, a manual transmission car quickly become annoying.
My name is Kelvin. My metric number is 0324, and I am going to I'm going to present about the conclusion. And the manual transmission technology is known since the 18th century and now mastered by car makers. It is a cheap and efficient way to ensure transmission functions. For a correct design, several parameters are taken into account as fuel economy, performances, and acoustics. The gear ratio design is the way to reach wanted fuel consumption and performances. Indeed, first and last gear are of great importance for maximum speed, takeoff, and fuel economy. And finally, the efficiency of the gearbox is assessed and lowered, as it is also a contributor to complete powertrain fuel efficiency.